This just in, breaking news, our top story tonight. Poker YouTuber forgets to upload clips of his stories on his prior news video, pays the price with this missing material. Only the best here at Poker News Productions. Luckily, I can sandwich that stuff in the day and you're not even gonna notice it. Our actual top story today, Nick Airball explains what happened with his investment banking job. Will Nick have an explanation of the transition? You can take that to the bank. This is some low budget material we got today, but it's still a video. Also tonight, the Launch Poker Club announces its new $25,000 chips are in circulation. The new $25,000 chips are a burnt orange in tribute to the Texas Longhorns. Just remember, if you mess with the bull, you'll get losing 2/3 of a median American salary. This is a reasonable amount of money to have in a circle. And finally tonight, today is the last day to purchase Road to Victory, the new Upswing Poker course by Darren Elias and Nick Petrangelo, and still receive a free $400 add-on, Victory Vault, which is 4 hours of breaking down tournament hands to help you win your tournaments. The only joke here would be not improving your tournament game. This is the worst intro I remember in a long time. All of this and more tonight on Say the Line. Before we get going here, I want to jump in. I had a few segments I covered yesterday that had a couple of good jokes, so let's kick it off with looking at some of yesterday's stories. A brief segment here on Daniel Negreanu defeating Eric Persson in their high-stakes heads-up duel match. After losing on this round of high-stakes duel, Eric Persson announced he will not be challenging in the next round of high-stakes duel and that he would like to be friends moving forward. Man, are any of these beefs even real anymore?
It's because no one fucking likes you, man. No one wants you there. You were the butt of every joke at the high-stakes poker table. You're on the outs. You're not a part of the in-group.
Oh, yeah. At least we still have that one. As for Eric, I can't say this is surprising. I mean, he's always been the kind of guy that turns the other cheek, and when someone's at their lowest, he takes the high road.
But now all his chips are mine, right at the end of the fucking stream. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I said he's taking the high road, I meant he's taking the high road with your motherfucking money.
Give it. Here you go. Here's another tilt card.
But, this is basically where we're at with heads-up feuds now. Starts off with shit talking and it ends up with 4 individual beings wearing matching pajama clothes. What happened to us? Changing gears, there was a recent announcement that the Oakland A's are going to demolish the Tropicana on the Strip to put a baseball stadium in for the Oakland A's, which I assume will become the Las Vegas A's. Now, I gotta say, this is a pretty exciting time for Las Vegas, and I personally am very tilted in that I left the city of Las Vegas as we got all of these pro sports teams. Hockey, football, baseball. I imagine basketball will one day be in Las Vegas as well. And at that point, as an avid sports lover, I left the town and won't get to reap the benefits of living there for half my life. But putting that to the side for a moment, this has got to be bad news for Live at the Bike, who had essentially announced that they were going to be moving a show, or at least launching a show at the Tropicana, which I guess now will be a pile of rubble. On the other hand, inside sources say it was already a pile of rubble. Have you been to the Tropicana in the last 2 decades? So a couple opinions there. Moving on, today, tournament poker is in full swing at the Lodge. We have a $25,000 tournament being streamed probably when you see this video, if not quite shortly thereafter, over on Poker at the Lodge. So make sure to stop by the stream and check out some high stakes action. Also, our 3K main event is popping right now, $2 million guaranteed. You can check it out. You can watch some streams over the weekend if you can't make it down. And if you can, I'll see you down at the Lodge. Alrighty, let's go ahead and look at this Nick Airball investment banking story. And I do feel a little bit like the Nick Airball saga winding down a little bit now that he's lost so much money, but the guy's always in the news. I mean, he lost $100,000 just the other day playing what seems to be a relatively small game. I mean, it was Hustler's game on a Wednesday. That's usually not their high stakes show. I took a look at some of the hands from this session, and I gotta say there were some rough ones. Now, it wasn't all bad beats or bad play, and certainly Nick Airball isn't running bad. And that's the downside when you play on these massive stacks that Nick Airball tends to play on. Usually, there is more area for things to go particularly badly. However, some of these hands I think were relatively standard. This first one kicks off with Nick Airball looking down at pocket cowboys and 4-betting versus Andy, who has the pocket queens. Queen 6 deuce flop, a gin flop for Andy. Nick Airball has the overpair, and it is now behind up against 3 of a kind from Andy. You might know Andy recently came under fire by Garrett Adelstein a little bit, when Garrett said he's sick of saying that Andy is a good player.
Like, literally every single person I brought up here probably is not happy with me, you know? But, like, I'm kind of done, like, you know, just like saying, you know, like, oh, yeah, like, Andy's such a great poker player. Wes is such a great poker, you know, that shit's boring. You know, it's boring, and I'd rather just kind of, like, speak, like, my truth.
Garrett later also said that he did regret saying these things and he fired off a little bit too hard. Don't we all, Garrett? Don't we all? Anyway, Queen 6 Deuce, Ace 6 is a board where you hate to have kings, but you're going to lose some amount of money. Airball does decide to go for a river bet, kind of thin in this situation. His opponent could certainly have just an ace. Airball, of course, putting him on a queen, betting $13,000. Andy now with the goods and the services. It's always nice to have three of a kind when the board runs out in this fashion. And ultimately, he decides it's time to put Nick Airball to the test. Andy makes it $45,000 to go, leaving a little bit of money behind for Nick Airball here. Don't like this size. I think I would prefer to go with something more in the vicinity of just an all-in. But Airball does make a disciplined laydown. And while this river bet was probably a bit too thin, he does not get stacked in a spot where, should things have gone differently, he absolutely could have. Just one other large pot over the night for Nick Airball, who opens it up with Queen 7 of spades here in the low jack. Definitely too loose of an open. Andy decides to go for the call once again, trying to play a few pots here in position against Nick Airball. This is an example of three hands that should probably fold. In fact, Mike X probably making the only reasonable pre-flop play, calling in the big blind with 6-5 offsuit. Queen Jack Queen, a cooler situation now for Nick Airball. Andy flops the nuts, top boat, up against Nick Airball's three of a kind. Airball bets $300. Andy bumps up $2,100 to go. No, you're definitely not going anywhere with Queen 7. You have three of a kind. You block some of the value. And also you unblock all of the draws that can be bluffing. There is no way around it. This hand's going to be a slam dunk call down. Maybe, just maybe, if you had like Queen 10 of diamonds, you could find a fold at some point. Probably not. But either way, this hand's going to simply have to call. After calling the flop, the turn comes a 4, creating two flush draws. Airball checks once again. Now Andy starts to overbet. Time to get a little bit scared here in Nick Airball's shoes, having just three of a kind on a board where there can certainly be lots of better queens, and his opponent is betting large. Typically speaking, on paired boards, you don't want to use these big sizes Andy uses, because if you don't have three of a kind, they're way more likely to have it. And if you do, they're way less likely to have it themselves. Anyway, Andy now, after betting the turn, $21,000 in the pot, he's firing for value on the river. He does decide to make it $27,000 and over on the river, and Airball once again snap calls. Airball really needs to take his time on some of these spots, think it over, and decide if it's a good play or not. On this 9, King 10 now beats him. If somehow 10-8 suited was in there, that beats him. If somehow 9's was in there, that beats him. 9's not very likely, but he still does lose to any higher queen, as well as pocket jacks. Anyway, Airball does pay off. Andy wins another one, and Andy on his way to a phenomenal night here on the Hustler Casino Live. But we didn't come here to talk about hands Nick Airball played, because if we did, we would be here for a while, because it was a 6-hour stream. Let's jump over and look at this interview between DJF and Nick Airball, talking about where Nick's money came from. Let's break it down.
So here's what it was. So out of school, I got into investment banking. I worked at 3 firms. I was working last year when I moved back to LA for a new job. I was working, I mean, people probably they don't remember this, but from March to November, basically March to a little bit after Jack 4, I played once a week, maybe twice a week sometimes, but basically once a week, and sometimes not even once a week. And it's because I was working. I had to work every single day. I was in the office for a lot of hours, and once a week I would slip out to go come play the stream because I love poker. Then the Jack 4 thing happened, and you may think well, how's that relevant to you? You weren't here, you weren't in the game.
You were Javier's, man.
Yeah. Well, Garrett put my name in his manifesto and essentially said that I was a part of the cheating ring, and that caused a lot of problems for me at work. People in the poker community are pretty nasty, and people were reaching out to my office and like saying pretty hateful things, and it caused a problem. And I was basically in a position where I had to pick, like, do I like my job more, or do I like playing poker and like having my freedom and whatever. And so I decided to move on from the banking role, and that's kind of when I started playing like twice a week here, or a lot more commonly was after that. And so, you know, that's kind of like why I'm no longer working at investment banking. But like for the longest time I was, and like for the whole time Ryan's known me, like I've worked at it as a banker, you know what I mean? Like it was only after the Jack 4 incident and like my name being brought up unfairly or whatever, like that, I had to leave that position.
This is an interesting story. I think that there are a few things that jump out at you. For starters, most people are simply not going to believe this because it seems a little bit unbelievable. For starters, investment banking, typically speaking, successful investment bankers, they tend to be much older and they had time to actually build an equity stake in some of the things that they were involved in. For example, Andy Beal, investment banker, worth billions of dollars, much older than Nick Airball. So the question is exactly what happened where it seemed like he made so much money in such a short period of time. And even though investment banking likely can be quite profitable, over this time span, it seems to be unlikely. That said, I can't say for sure, but what I can do is read you some of these Reddit comments because they ain't having it. He worked for some bottom tier firms, lol. It's family money. That's a lot of hard thinking to remember working for 3 firms for a 28-year-old. Yeah, and I just worked there for the longest time. This just doesn't pass the smell test. These go on and on and on, and I don't like to say things in absolute terms because, as we all know, if you say things in absolute terms, you might get roasted online. So I can't say for sure where Nick's money came from. I really don't know. But this story does seem a little bit strange. Regardless, there were a couple other issues in this interview with DJF. What exactly did happen when Nick Airball's name came up in the Robbi scandal? Is it reasonable to imagine that that cost him his job? I thought about this, and it certainly does seem possible. Now, I don't think that's the reason he's playing poker, but just imagine this for a second. The Robbi Garrett story is the largest thing to happen in poker since Mike Postle. You can debate which one's larger. These are the really top 2 stories I can remember in some time. It's not Helmuth winning his 47th bracelet. I mean, don't get me wrong, Phil. What an incredible achievement. And I just want to take a moment to say, Phil, if you're watching, and if you're not watching, someone tell Phil to watch this. We've had some tough times over the years, Phil. I know that. And I haven't always treated you the most fairly on this channel. But you've also not acted the most reasonable. So I'm willing to accept part of the blame here in the spirit of trying to join the inner circle. And how about this? I'd love to have you come play at the lodge. Let's bury the hatchet. The people would like to see you. If you would like to see Phil Helmuth come down to the lodge, let me know in the comments. We'll take care of you, Phil. Congrats on that 47th bracelet, by the way. Anyway, let's just say for a moment Nick was working. I could see a scenario where you got LA Times articles coming out. It's all over the internet. It's a massive story, and he's now dragged into the middle of it. He was hanging out with the alleged people involved just the day before this all went down. Can totally see that having an impact in your real life. Is that fair? Well, that's a good question. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot too on this channel. The fact is these videos and content on the internet can impact people. And a lot of people have said to me, Doug, I think you need to be a lot more careful about the impact that your videos can have. And after thinking long and hard about that, I decided one thing. It's fucking bullshit. Here's the deal, gang. If I make a video and it's unfair, that's wrong no matter what its impact is. But if I make a video and it's fair and it's a truthful opinion and shows the facts, and that has a negative effect for people, that's life. I can't just live in this shadow of, oh no, somebody might get made fun of or someone else. No, if we make a video on this channel and it's truthful, I'm making it. And let the chips fall as they fucking may. So good to be back. Well, I didn't actually go anywhere, but I wish I could be like the cool kids. I digress. Back to the matter at hand. I do think it's unlikely Nick Airball got his money from poker. Who the hell knows? I certainly don't. But the point of the matter is this. This guy is entertaining. And he is making the rounds in poker in a way that not many people have managed to break in and make in quite some time. So whatever happens in the Nick Airball investment banking poker story, I'm going to be tuned in. And I'm going to be breaking it down for you, the good viewers of this channel. And once again, I appreciate you tuning in. That's going to be it for me, you guys. I will see you down at the lodge. Might be streaming right now. Who knows? See you over there. Peace.